We do have some programs that you can tap into. If you go to MDE's website, I have a brand new website up. On the left-hand side.
Can EPA enforce TMDL and make MDE hook up public sewer to existing subdivisions?
I don't know how we can do that under the Clean Water Act, that specific example. What EPA is looking to do here is to build the state's accountability so that it passes our reasonable assurance test so that we know how you're going to get from A to B. To the extent that in Virginia, in Maryland's plan that they have these hookups of developments to the larger plant, we will be watching to try to assure that that happens. To the extent that that's not in the plan, that simply means that this state has figured out how to get those controls from other sources. And EPA is not being prescriptive as to how you get these controls. We're being prescriptive as to showing us how you're going to do it and giving us a full understanding of how you're going to get from a low level of implementation to high level of implementation.
There are billions of dollars being spent on BMP and stream restoration projects nationwide, but less than 10% of these are monitored post-construction for effectiveness. Shouldn't there be some monitoring requirement for up to 5 years after construction to determine how effective they are per dollar spent and to help determine changes to future design technologies for continued improvement?
Short answer, amen. One of the things that we're doing is working with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation that as we put out grants, particularly looking at innovative practices or other ones out there, we're actually asking a set aside of not only putting the practice in place, put about 5 to 10% of your money to do the monitoring, do the follow through on it. Because if we put, those are our studies out there to understand that adaptive management. You can't fuel adaptive management unless you know and understand and learn. You might go down the wrong path. Some folks say, wait, why would you go down that path? Well, we're not sure whether it would work until we test it out there, particularly on stream monitoring, particularly on our physical restoration efforts. We're asking increasingly, part of the dollars, set them aside, do the monitoring, feedback, and actually bring that back to the community, figure out a form in which we can actually then communicate to the people that are going to actually be doing the next generation of it, and let's learn. So that's an excellent point. We need to look to our other federal partners to actually tag some of the dollars that are going out there for restoration efforts so that, in fact, we learn on that process and we can adapt as we move forward on restoration efforts.
So I'm going to read the next question, and as the folks as the panelists are answering the question, if the following 3 people would make their way forward: Russell Donnelly, Candy Morrison, Nick Camille. So the next question is, 64% of Arundel County is privately owned. How will we reach these private property owners and encourage them to reduce pollution runoff?
It just so happens that in trying to figure out how we're going to develop these phase 2 watershed implementation plans, we had some pilot projects over the last year, one of which was with Anne Arundel County. And during that pilot process, this was an issue that came up. And part of how we're approaching this is to really try to zero in on the responsible parties, be it county, be it soil conservation district managed lands, individual landowners, federal lands, commercial lands. And that is going to be part of the phase 2 process. It's a challenging process in order to have controls on private lands. And different counties are taking different approaches. Carroll County, for instance, is taking money and saying to private property owners, let us come onto your property and make some improvements, we'll pay for it. I know other counties have some very sophisticated incentive plans to do that type of thing.
The next question is, I thought that the new stormwater regulations were supposed to ensure no new loads from new development. What is the source of the no load that needs to be offset, and how is it calculated?
Yeah, we are over our bay budget. I mean, the bay can only handle so much and still protect the living resources and meet water quality standards, and we're way beyond that loading level. And so it doesn't make sense that you would add additional loading through new development. So what the TMDL is speaking to, that as we're adding more people and as we are potentially adding more loadings from those additional people, we need to offset that one or two ways, and the TMDL speaks to the idea of allocating a loading for future growth. And you can do that, but the way you do that is there's less loading available to allocate for the existing sources. Or number two, you offset the loading for any new growth. And what that really means is, as a new community comes in and there is a 5,000 pound per year footprint or loading coming from that community, we're hoping two things happen. Number one is, when that community is developed, it has the smallest nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment footprint possible. That is developed in a way that really minimizes that. But number two, to the extent that there is some loading coming from that new source into the bay, you need to offset it. You need to find a trading partner out there that is reducing that 5,000 pounds of additional loading that you're putting into the bay. They need to reduce their loading by an additional 5,000 pounds. In that way, the bay can meet its objectives even though we have new sources coming in.
The next question is there funding available to connect grandfathered small lot subdivision to wastewater treatment plants, especially those within the critical bay area?
Again, I direct people to MDE's webpage. The lower left hand, down at the bottom, there is a button to click on for that kind of information. If you have that specific question, you can also come talk to me. I'll give you my card. We do have certainly we do have some loans, low interest loans, as well as, at least in the past, I think we may still have some supplemental assistance grants to jurisdictions that have lower income population and need extra assistance on that type of thing.